Phase Zero Immediate Reaction episode number 6 starts right now. We've been teasing this one. We didn't really want to spoil it for you that we were getting an Echo trailer today, but it's out there now. We've watched it and we're going to talk all about it. I'm Brandon Davis, joined this morning by Jenna Anderson.
Hey, everybody. Holy moly, we have a lot to talk about today. I am so excited.
Woo, we got Jamie Jirak.
Oh boy, we sure do. Hi.
We got Aaron Perrine.
And y'all thought the 4-letter words in these shows were adult. Let's go, BD.
I'm telling you, we got to talk about this Echo trailer. We're going to do just that. It finally dropped. Thank you so much for joining us for the Loki episode last night. That was our most watched episode of Phase Zero without a special guest in I don't know how long. We're on our way to the biggest week of the year, and it's not even going to be close. This episode is about...
Muted, BD.
You're muted.
Oh, no.
You know what? He said too much. That's why.
Yes,
That's
he
what
did.
You get, man. Kevin was like, no more.
Kevin was
no
pulling
more.
the strings. But as he was saying, we have a big week in store for the show, and it is just so exciting. Jamie, I know you kind of got to get the inside scoop on the Echo trailer. So kind of, I guess, just to start things off, explain that experience.
Oh gosh, it was like really awesome. So I went to a trailer event a little while back, and Sydney Freeland, who is the executive producer and director of the show, talked so much about it. We got to see the trailer that everybody just watched. So it's been hard to keep my mouth shut on this one. I'm gonna be honest. It's been tough. But we also watched 3 scenes from the show, and sometimes when we see scenes where like we go and we describe it beat for beat, and they told us not to do that. They're like, just tell us just share the tone. So I have to be a little careful. But it's really interesting because, coming off of Hawkeye, this show doesn't look like Hawkeye. It looks like it's from the Defenderverse. It is straight out of the Defenderverse. It is the first Disney Plus Marvel show that's rated TVMA. That's pretty cool. And it's coming simultaneously to Hulu, which is crazy.
I love that approach. I was not prepared for that at all. Any of it, like the TVMA, the dual release on Hulu. I think that is just such a smart strategy. And we're seeing them do the Hulu thing already. Like Werewolf by Night has been on Hulu over spooky season. So I think this is really smart. And it's just crazy to be in a world where we have a TVMA Disney Plus show and that Echo is the first one. I'm glad that it ended up being Echo because this has me monumentally more excited for the show.
Before we get into talking about the trailer itself, I want to go back because we all had this show ranked differently. And I remember I did not have it ranked highly on my anticipation rankings. I will say, I know, listen, Aaron's got the big old ear in the camera. Strictly based on it being TVMA, that ups my anticipation of this one. Also, the featuring of Kingpin, the blink and you miss a Daredevil moment, which we'll talk about. We'll try to pause the trailer for to take a look at in this episode. All these things considered have me excited for this. This does look like it's going to make Echo's story real time.
Oh, he's out again.
It won't let him be great.
No, it won't.
No.
I do agree with BD. I think I'm so glad that this trailer came out before we're going to do our rankings episode for next year, because now this show is really, really going to be high on my rankings, like easily. But yeah, Aaron, we haven't heard what you think about the trailer and all of these announcements.
I was surprised to sort of see it all in motion. And I keep telling people, so will y'all believe me now when I say y'all shouldn't judge things before y'all see them? Can I just say how many people, it's like there was one fan that listens to our show all the time who's native, me, maybe Damon, and somebody else were like, yo, this show's going to be really, really interesting to see. And now that it looks like it's a Defendersverse show, now everybody wants to be around. What's going on?
Well, how am I supposed to put it in my rankings if all I have to base it on is we
put Morbius not at the bottom last year. We can do whatever we want. Me and you, we were there together, BD.
Listen, but I'll say this: yes, the based on the rankings, where I put this in my rankings, the trailer has single-handedly raised it in my rankings, and I think when we look back at this year, even though this is coming out on January 10th, it's going to rank higher than it was ranked on my anticipation in terms of quality rankings.
I couldn't even begin to remember or guess where it was in my ranking.
I just know it wasn't high for me.
I feel like it wasn't that low. I don't know. I feel like I was excited, but I'm definitely more excited now. I'll be honest for sure.
Yeah. All right. Let's pull up the trailer. Let's all go around, share our reactions to it. Aaron, you're at the top of the screen. What did you think of the Echo trailer this morning?
Well, I mean, the funny, I have not seen it until the rest of you. So, like during the countdown, I was just going back to it again, trying to like grasp all of it. But as a non-Defenders verse viewer, right? Like only very sporadically, I've seen Daredevil, I've seen parts of the Punisher, mostly Ariel watching it. So shout out to her for like forcing me. It really does feel like what people you've been asking for this. People have just been incessantly. I read all your comments. I sit there during the shows. We hear y'all talking. You look like you got what you wanted. I don't know. I'm like, where, I wish Adam Barnhart could dream walk into my body right now so he could Daredevil vibes in this. So I'm excited to see what they got. And they didn't pay $8 billion or whatever $8 billion for Hulu like 2 days ago for no reason. They're putting all the effort behind this stuff, man. I'm really excited to see.
Jana, what about you? What do you think about this trailer?
As soon as we saw Fisk, just the posture that D'Onofrio has in that first shot with the white suit, I was like, oh, we're like, let's go. This is going to be amazing. I like how this tonally feels like its own thing as much as it feels like Daredevil. It doesn't just feel like we're reskinning Daredevil and putting the same sort of vibe onto Echo. It still feels like its own vibe, but it is dark. It is gritty. I was not prepared for how gritty even this trailer would be. And I just think it's so exciting. And I don't know. I already liked what we got of Echo in Hawkeye, but I think like this is going to take it so much further.
I when I first watched this at the trailer thing, I literally turned to a friend next to me and went, and for those who listen in podcast form, it was like a jaw drop, eyeball shock face. I couldn't believe it. And like I've said this before, I never finished Daredevil. It was not my thing. I couldn't really get into it, but I'm like, okay, Jamie, you have until January to finally watch seasons 2 and 3. I've seen season 1 multiple times because I'm like, oh, it's been so long. I guess I got to go back again. And that's my fault. My biggest problem. But like I've seen Hawkeye so much, and I'm like, this doesn't look like it's connected to Hawkeye at all, which is kind of fun. Other than like obviously Maya, and then him, you see his eye patch, and it seems to me, and based on what I've seen already, that this show is going to jump around in time. For sure, because we're gonna get some of her relationship with Fisk from childhood. Man, that ice cream vendor, I'm not saying he deserved it, but he kind of deserved it. What he got, like, you're gonna like mock a deaf child, yeah, you're gonna get your ass beat, sorry. Yeah. But I don't know, I just think it's really cool that they're not afraid to go like all in on it, because some comics are like action heavy and violent, and you should be true to like these characters and stuff. I will say though, one thing that Maya will not have, in the comic, she has the power to mimic anybody, and Sidney Freeland was like, that's lame, we're not doing that. So
Taskmaster qualities are just not actually ever brought to the MCU. But no, the shot of Kingpin with the with the eye patch, I mean, that's straight up comic, you know what I mean? It is cool to see that stuff, the stuff from the comics. It does make it is understandable that some stuff from the comics doesn't make it. Like what works in one medium doesn't necessarily translate to another. I thought this trailer was good. I thought it made me more interested in Maya's story than anything from Hawkeye did, and that's not to say I wasn't interested in Maya in Hawkeye, but this trailer alone shows like there's the story was interesting and set up in Hawkeye, how you saw her as a kid, you saw Kingpin come take her away and be part of her life, and now getting to really see that and get these plugs from Hawkeye, the connections. Obviously she shot him in the face just like she did in the comics at the end of Hawkeye, and it was like, well, we all know Kingpin's not dead. Surprise, he's not dead, and now he's back with an eye patch. So it'd be really cool to see all that play out. I'm curious, is this going to be the project where we see that Fisk bought Avengers Tower? Who knows? There's a shot of Daredevil. It's a blink and you miss it shot of Daredevil in this trailer that I'm trying to find here so we could all just admire Daredevil, because it seems that he's in his red suit here, which is exciting.
While you're looking for that, I will say I think that it's really smart how much they leaned into Fisk in this trailer, because that is what people want for the most part. And I really think that he's going to play a pretty big role in this show. I don't think that Daredevil is going to be in a lot of this show based on what I've seen. So I don't think everyone should get like super hyped that it's like this is like the Charlie Cox show. But I will say I have seen a Daredevil scene, and you won't be disappointed. I'll just say that.
Ooh, you won't be disappointed, Jamie. We're going to talk off show because I need to know more. This is the shot right here where he's clearly that's him jumping away. Is that who's he fighting? I can't.
Oh,
Really
I know.
Well, then Jamie can't answer.
Okay. All right. So Daredevil's fighting somebody. I can't tell like if that's a bad guy, if that's maybe it's so blurry. Is that Echo herself? Just such a blurry character in the background. My guesses are probably.
Oh, and there he goes again.
I mean, we're just not allowed to talk about Daredevil.
No,
like, don't talk about Charlie.
See, I
Cox.
was gonna jokingly be like, oh, he's fighting Big Wheel or Stiltman or something. Like, let me just throw the completely like out of left field option here. But Aaron, what are your theories if you have one?
It's Leapfrog.
Yeah.
Shout out to Leapfrog. I don't know. There's so many nameless, faceless people who get just served up in Daredevils and all the Daredevil seasons, and in She-Hulk too, unfortunately. So I'm hoping that whoever this guy is, he has the company insurance plan for the henchman. He's gonna need it.
This is gonna be good stuff. I think that I'm seeing on social media, I'm seeing in the comment section, people are already more excited about this than it seemed they were before. And I've been teasing the MCU is going to chalk up some dubs in the coming weeks between Loki, between some stuff.
He can't talk about him.
I know.
He can't do it. He can't talk about him. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I'm
Feige's like,
telling you right
don't say too much.
Don't
I
literally
know.
in the background. But it is a lot of forward momentum. I watched you guys last night on Phase Zero. It was great. Once I got home from where I was, and I was like, oh man, the enthusiasm in the comments and from other people is just infectious. Like this, that. We got the Marvels in a couple days. It's gonna be a wild couple weeks here, you know.
Absolutely. Jamie, I'm very curious about like the press event thing and kind of like what you learned from it. And I know BD's probably curious too. So
great. There's really so much to talk about. And first and foremost, what I think is really interesting is that Sydney Freeland really drove the point home that Maya's a villain. And the term birth of a villain was used a lot. I did see a flashback to her childhood that was a very big formative moment for her. And it's funny because at one point she did call the show an exploration of trauma. And I was like, just what we need in the MCU. More grief and trauma, but like because of what I've seen, I'm still interested in that. Like, it's okay to go darker. I would like some lighter stuff soon, just because of what we have been getting, and it has been kind of a sad era. But it is really promising in that regard. Are you guys ready for more trauma?
I'm ready for Nicole to write her next like trauma think piece and to just like help us through therapy. I think like with Echo in particular, I feel like because she's a character who hasn't up until this point even had her own solo comic. Like she has just been on the periphery. She's been this anti-hero, kind of like sometimes a villain, sometimes she's not. I like that we're getting the trauma angle from that perspective. I think that there's a potential for that to be really interesting.
I also feel like the Marvels is about to be pretty light. It feels like the trailers are keeping it pretty light. So I'm all for some darkness. The only thing that I ended up really enjoying out of Secret Invasion was the tone, especially in the earlier episodes. I'm all for this, man. I think it's awesome to see that Marvel is proving they're not afraid to do the TVMA thing. I gave up on the microphone, by the way, so I'm just out here. That thing was unplugged.
At least we can hear you now. So
yeah, you sound good to me.
Yeah.
So it might not be as crispy, crunchy ASMR level of mic quality, but I'd rather be able to talk. But I'm all for maturity. Aaron, what do you think about getting some darkness?
I mean, there are certainly people who want it.
You're not that person though.
I am not that person. I will watch it, and I'm excited that Laka Clark's getting her showcase. I'm excited for all the Native fans. I talked to so many people who are of Native descent, like about this show and how excited they were. And they were afraid it just wasn't going to come out because of everything else that's happened, but she's going to get her moment. And that's really awesome. And
speaking of that real quick, Jamie had a point about that because I know that one of the things they kept talking about at the Avenue N2 was the authenticity of it.
There was so much discussion about the authenticity, both in terms of deaf representation and native representation. And in terms of the native, Sydney Freeland is Navajo, and Maya is Choctaw. And so they actually, Sydney Freeland and all of her department heads went to Oklahoma for the Choctaw Nation, and they met and they made sure that they understood all of all of the culture and everything. And Sydney even said, she's like, I'm Navajo, I'm not Choctaw. I don't know everything about them. That's not how it works. But she did grow up on a reservation. She talked about how she grew up on a reservation reading comics, which to me is like makes her the perfect person to make this show. I think that's awesome. We're also going to be getting some flashbacks to Maya's ancestors, which you can kind of see in the trailer. There's some black and white moments, and I like that because that's what I loved about Ms. Marvel. I really love how these newer shows are really exploring some interesting history, and our history in that area isn't always great. There's a new movie out about that right now, so I'll be interested to see where they take it, but I don't think it's just going to be darkness in that regard either. I think it's also going to be a celebration of the Choctaw people, and I think that's really neat.
I got goosebumps. That's amazing.
It's going to be interesting to spend time with like Maya's family and just everyone around her. Those scenes look really cool, and also that big old person walking out of the tent looks like a force to be reckoned with. Oh my God. I'm excited to meet these new characters. What else we got here? Hulu and Disney Plus is interesting. That's an interesting, we've kind of touched on that, but that's one of the points we had down here. What were you going to say?
I also want to add in terms of representation, which they talked about in terms of the deaf community and everything, and how they talked about how they filmed the show and how everything is pretty much like on Maya. Everything is there to serve Maya, in a way that, when your lead is deaf and you're working with, a lot of subtitles and all these things, there's a lot to take into consideration. And it's very clear that they made this show again to serve her and everything about her, and I think that's really cool.
I'll say this is a personal experience I have in interviewing Alakwa Cox. This is like a learning experience and it's like a habit that I had to break because I interviewed Alakwa Cox at D23, I think it was, and so there's an interpreter, a sign language person who's going to come with them, and they give you the instruction of, hey, hold the mic to me, just because when she's signing, I will talk back. But I just out of instinct, I was like, I just hold the mic out after I ask my question. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's going to be, just those little things. Like that's a little thing that I got to learn on how to properly interview somebody who is deaf. And I was like, okay, wow. I feel like I feel like that was almost disrespectful to me. Like crap. And I started panicking because like, oh my God, I'm supposed to. And then the interpreter, who is clearly like experienced this many times, will take my hand and put it in front of themselves, just very subtly. That's their job. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. And it's just going to be like interesting things like that to hear that on set they accommodated all these things that had to be accommodated. The show is probably going to represent a lot of things that we don't see represented in this genre, and I think it's going to be really cool to learn things like that with Echo. And I think this show looks good at just overall. I like this climbed my rankings so swiftly today. What else we got? Anything else we want to talk about before with today's trailer?
Was there anything that they said at the press event about Daredevil? Because I know like the people probably want to know. So
well, it was funny because at one point, Sydney, she goes, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I love the Netflix Daredevil. And then everyone's like, yeah, you can say it. And then she basically said that, because somebody asked, like, this looks more like Daredevil than it does a Disney Plus show. Is that, part of it? And she did say that, like, especially, the Daredevil fight that you see in the trailer, she wanted to make sure it was like a nod to the Daredevil show, and that dictated the tone a bit, is what she said. Now, when in that regard, I don't think that there are going to be story ties to Daredevil, but I definitely think that, like, tone wise and everything, they totally took influence from the show. So they were not shy of admitting that this is influenced by Netflix.
That's exciting. That's good news, in my opinion. And I think that honestly, this scene where Kingpin is beating this guy up at the trash can,
I know,
it kind of reminded me of Steve Rogers in the first scenes of the first Avenger.
Don't get into an alley with a Marvel character in a trash can, because you're probably going to regret it.
Yeah, I was just thinking of little skinny Steve getting beat up. Unfortunately, that was not little skinny Steve. It was a bad man, and no bad deed goes unpunished, according to Echo. Well, I feel I've said all I need to say. Without watching the trailer 100 times, it's hard to dive into like Easter eggs and all kinds of stuff like that. But so I'm all set to just wrap this up. Aaron, you got anything else you want to add to today's Echo Immediate Reaction episode?
Excited to see all of everybody actually turn on this in real time. That is always fun. Also, shout out to one of the writers of Blade for refuting that report already. So wait till things come out and then we react. Maybe. Probably not because it's the internet, but I can dream.
I thought you were just going to hit me with an I told you so about
No.
Thank you. Jenna.
I am so excited for the show now, like even more so. I'm also very curious how this is going to work as a binge. Is it going to be overwhelming? Is it going to be satisfying? How is that going to flow? Because just based off this trailer, I'm probably going to want to binge it anyway, but I'm very curious to see that aspect of it. But this show looks amazing. This is going to be so much fun to cover.
January 10th binge. I really hope for the sake of our jobs, they send all the episodes and not just like send 4 and then we have to binge the last 2 before we can even do our show. We got to figure out how we're going to cover Echo because I don't think we're going to do episode by episode breakdowns. They're all available. So it's just like, okay, well, January 10th, at what time? When do we we'll figure it out. We'll
6-hour phase 0. Let's go.
Oh,
just a telethon.
Yeah. We're
Yes.
all watching together and building Lego Avengers Tower. Jamie, any last words for today's show?
Yeah, the only other thing I want to say that Sydney Freeland said that I thought was nice to hear was she called her experience working with Marvel Studios overwhelmingly positive. She said she felt really supported, and she said that she's worked on shows where she had less freedom than she did with this, and that we've been hearing a lot of stuff about Marvel lately, and it was nice to hear something, especially from a woman creator, that was so positive. But other than that, I'm hyped. Everything about that I've seen, this trailer, I cannot wait. January is right around the corner. It's almost 2024.
That's oh my gosh, it's already November 3rd. OG Fortnite is back. So I have to go for that reason. Now I'm about to actually interview Eric Martin, the writer on Loki, after last night's phenomenal episode. If you have not yet listened to our Loki podcast, please go do that. We have a huge analysis of the news dump from Wednesday on our Wednesday episode of Phase Zero. We have our Wednesday show coming up next week. We have the Loki season finale on Thursday night, which we do live on our YouTube channel. And we have the Marvels bonus episode coming Friday, full spoilers, full review. We also have a bonus episode, very likely have a bonus episode on Sunday or Monday for another movie thing that's happening. That it's not the Marvels. It's just a tangled web we're weaving here and teasing it to you. So we'll see you then to talk about something else, kind of like we did today. See you there. Subscribe to the channel. Leave us a 5-star review. Play our show for your mom and play it for your dog. And just keep our views going up. They're going up. We appreciate it. So thank you. Congrats to the MCU on some wins. And hopefully next week there's even more. Later.